The salt-laced wind whips through the vast, echoing expanse of the port of entry cargo inspection bay, carrying the distant groan of a ship's horn. You stand amidst towering stacks of corrugated steel, each container a sealed tomb of unknown contents, a testament to global commerce and hidden secrets. The air, a metallic symphony of industry, hums with the low thrum of heavy machinery. Forklifts, like yellow-bellied beasts, scuttle between mountains of cargo, their tines glinting under the stark, utilitarian lights. Your gaze, usually sharp, now carries the dull ache of routine, fixed on a smudged manifest. It details a shipment of industrial fasteners, a mundane puzzle of missing inventory. This is your life now, Seth, the quiet hum of small-time investigations, the gray areas between law and petty crime. The badge, a polished symbol of authority, is a ghost in your memory, a weight lifted and yet perpetually present. A sudden, sharp image flickers behind your eyes, unbidden, unwelcome. A young woman's face, framed by dark hair, smiling shyly from a faded photograph. The Elm Street girl. Her name, whispered in the hushed, horrified tones of a city grappling with an absence it couldn't comprehend, still etches itself onto the landscape of your mind. Her disappearance, a cold, unyielding knot in the fabric of your past, remains the unturned stone, the unanswered question that cost you everything. Your badge, your reputation, your peace. You swallow, the bitterness of familiar taste on your tongue, a constant reminder of the failure that redefined your trajectory. You lift your head, your eyes narrowing, instantly alert. A figure stands before you, a stark contrast to the grime and grit of the bay. His face, usually seen on city hall podiums and news channels, is drawn, etched with a raw, desperate fear that even his powerful status cannot conceal. It is Councilman Thorne. Seth, his voice is a strained rasp, barely audible above the din of the bay. I need your help. You merely observe him, your expression unreadable. Your cynicism, a protective shell forged in the fires of past betrayals, keeps you silent. It's not enough. And there are details. Things that make me think of. The noise of the bay recedes, the world narrowing to this man and his desperate plea. Just like left on her nightstand. You take the photo. A single white lily had been left on her pillow, too. A detail never released to the public, known only to the investigative team. Your team. And the time, Thorne adds, his eyes pleading. She disappeared exactly at 3:17 a.m. The same time. 3:17 a.m. That was the time etched into your memory, the time the Elm Street girl's window was found ajar, the time the first responders had logged their arrival. The agonizingly specific detail that had haunted your sleepless nights for years. This wasn't coincidence. This was a deliberate, malevolent echo. You hand the photograph back, your fingers brushing his. The fear emanating from him is palpable, a raw, exposed nerve. The ghost of Elm Street, it seems, has found a new vessel, and it is calling you back. Your resolve, once a solid wall against the past, begins to crumble. A determined glint enters your eyes. Your gaze drifts from the councilman's frantic face to the blinking digital clock above the loading dock, each second a hammer blow against the fragile piece you've meticulously constructed. 3:17 a.m. It's not just a time, it's a scar, an open wound that never truly healed. Seth, the councilman's voice, usually a booming instrument of authority, cracks, reduced to a desperate plea. His expensive suit, rumpled and stained with what might be coffee or despair, tells a story of a long, sleepless night. You're the only one who truly understands. They're calling it a runaway, a youthful indiscretion, but she wouldn't. Not like this. You taste the metallic tang of memory, the bitter ash of failure. The Elm Street girl. Her parents had said the same. She wouldn't. You push the Phantom 8 behind your ribs down, deep into the hollow space where your badge once rested.
Understanding.
You reply, the word a gravelly rasp isn't enough to bring someone back. You gesture vaguely around the cavernous space. He insists, stepping closer, his eyes bloodshot, pleading.
They're not even looking. Not really.
The official channels are
slow.
Obscured.
My daughter, Ilara, she's gone.
From her bedroom.
No forced entry. Just gone. And the time. An open window.
You see the spectral image of the Elm Street house, the pale moonlight spilling into an empty room. This isn't just a case, it's an echo, a malignant return of the past. Why me, you ask, your voice flat, devoid of the emotion that coils like a viper in your gut.
I'm a disgraced detective.
A private investigator now, barely. They threw me out for this very kind of case. Precisely, the councilman counters, a flicker of something resembling hope in his eyes.
Because you know. You pursued it when everyone else wanted to close the book.
They called you obsessed.
I call you determined. I need that determination, Seth. I need you to find Ilara. He reaches into his jacket, pulling out a thick envelope, its edges crisp. There's a retainer.
More where that came from.
Just find her.
The envelope feels heavy in your hand, not with money, but with the burden of expectation, the ghosts of your past. You stare at the councilman, seeing not just his desperation, but the raw, unadulterated fear that mirrors your own from years ago.
Reluctance warred with a grim, undeniable pull. You nod, a single, sharp motion. Tell me everything. From the beginning.
Hours later, the sun a pale smear against the city's concrete horizon, you find yourself walking the quiet, tree-lined street where Ilara vanished.
Her house, a stately brick colonial, feels too silent, a tomb of lost dreams.
The street is identical to Elm Street in its suburban serenity, a deceptive calm that belies the horror it has witnessed.
The police presence is minimal, almost perfunctory.
A single patrol car idles down the block, its occupants seemingly more interested in their phones than the missing girl. You approach a uniformed officer, a young man with an uncreased face and an air of detached efficiency.
Seth, you state.
Pulling out your PI license, though you know your face is likely more recognizable than the laminated card.
I'm looking into the Ilara Vance disappearance. The officer's eyes narrow.
A subtle shift in his posture.
That's an active investigation, civilian. Nothing new to report. Standard runaway protocol. Runaway protocol.
The words sting, a rehash of the official narrative that buried the Elm Street girl case.
No forced entry.
Right, you ask, observing the pristine window frames, the secure front door.
Correct,
he confirms, his gaze drifting to a point beyond your shoulder.
Clearly eager to disengage. Window was found open. No signs of struggle. She's a teenager, Mr. Seth. Happens all the time. You bite back a retort. Not like this. Not at 3:17 a.m. Not with the eerie parallels to a case they declared unsolvable. You spend another hour observing the street, the neighboring houses, the subtle details of Ilara's room from the outside.
A small, handcrafted bird feeder hangs near her window, a splash of vibrant color in the otherwise somber facade. It's the kind of personal touch that speaks to a gentle spirit, not a rebellious one. Your next stop is the precinct, a familiar, sterile environment that now feels like enemy territory. The air is thick with the scent of stale coffee and unspoken histories. You ask to speak to the lead detective on the Vance case. The detective is unavailable, the desk sergeant grunts, not bothering to look up from his monitor.
With actual crimes.
The Vance girls case is being handled.
No need for outside interference.
The emphasis on actual hangs in the air, a thinly veiled insult, a clear message, stay out.
The stonewalling is immediate, palpable.
It's not just indifference, it's a carefully constructed wall, an unspoken command to retreat. The unease settles deep in your bones, a premonition of the intricate web you're about to untangle. The handcrafted bird feeder, a miniature cathedral of rough-hewn pine, sways gently near Ilara's window. Your gaze lingers, tracing the meticulous lines, the tiny, perfect perch.
Not a mass-produced item.
This small detail, a whisper of care in a world suddenly devoid of it, catches in your mind like a burr. The last disappearance, the one that splintered your life, also had its meticulous edges, its strange, almost artistic precision. A cold thread snakes through your gut. You drive, the engine a low growl, away from the manicured lawns and the hushed panic of the councilman's estate.
The place is called the Anchor, a name ironic given how many lives drift aimlessly within its walls.
The air inside is thick with stale beer, cheap perfume, and a faint, metallic tang you've come to associate with desperation. The neon sign above the bar, half burnt out, casts a sickly green glow on the faces huddled at tables. You navigate the cramped space, your eyes scanning, dismissing, then settling.
You slide into the opposite seat. The wood creaks under your weight.
Barely audible above the din of a crackling jukebox. Some ghosts walk, you reply, the words a low thrum in your chest.
Heard you were digging. He snorts. A dry, humorless sound. Always digging. What makes you think I've unearthed anything you'd care about?
A bird feeder, you say, watching his reaction, handcrafted.
Meticulous. Just like the last time. The words hang between you, heavy with unspoken history.
His eyes, finally, lift to yours. That was a quiet kind of clean.
Like old rust.
Talk of a new player.
Someone who likes to move things. Without leaving a paper trail. High stakes. High risk.
And very, very quiet. He pauses, his gaze darting around the room, as if afraid the very air might be listening.
They say this one's got a fondness for the old way. No digital footprint. Everything handled by hand. And they use an old mark.
A serpent coiled around a broken anchor.
He was seen it on a few crates, down by the water.
Crates where, you press, your pulse quickening its rhythm.
He hesitates, chewing on his lip. Near the main hub.
The place where the big boys play.
Stuff that shouldn't see the light of day. And they don't like visitors. Who are they? He shakes his head, a muscle twitching in his jaw. Names don't last long when you ask too many questions about them. But the serpent and anchor. Keep an eye out for it. It's a signature.
You extract a folded bill from your pocket and slide it across the table.
He tried to sell what he knew.
He was found him floating in the river, 2 days ago.
It all echoes too loudly. You push back from the table. Thanks.
He doesn't respond, merely watches you with those flinty eyes as you rise. As you turn to leave, his voice, a low hiss, follows you.
Seth. Some doors, once you open them, they don't close.
The noise of the anchor fades behind you as you step back into the anemic light of morning. The air outside is sharper, carrying the tang of salt and exhaust fumes. You drive, your focus narrowed, the city a blur of gray and concrete. The docks begin to appear, skeletal cranes clawing at the sky.
The scent of diesel and brine fills your nostrils. The warning from the informant resonates, a persistent thrum of danger. You are no longer merely observing from the outside. You are stepping back into the maelstrom, and something unseen is already watching you.
The game has begun, and the first thread, thin as a spider silk, leads directly to the churning heart of the city's hidden commerce. You need to see that serpent and anchor for yourself. Your mind races, piecing together the fragments, a handcrafted bird feeder, meticulously carved from a rare, dark wood, not native to these shores. The memory of the proprietor's hushed tone, the subtle tremor in his hand as he spoke of the intricate detail, it all coalesces into a chilling whisper. Specific. Deliberate. You drive, the city's concrete veins blurring past your window, a canvas of gray and muted brick. The engine hums a low, insistent rhythm against the quickening pulse in your temples. Back in the sanctuary of your cluttered office, the scent of old paper and stale coffee is a familiar comfort. You peel back the blinds, letting the weak morning sun spill across your desk, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, restless spirits in a forgotten archive. From a locked drawer, you retrieve the Elm Street Girl file. Its cardboard cover, once pristine, is now softened by years of handling, a testament to the quiet torment it represents. You spread the aged photographs across the scarred wood of your desk, the pristine room, the carefully arranged personal effects, the single, stark absence. Your eyes scan the inventory of her belongings, the witness statements, the forensic reports that yielded so little. Nothing. Then, a detail, almost an afterthought in a supplementary report from a junior officer, a small, decorative bird feeder, found on the window ledge outside the victim's room. Handcrafted. You pull out the photograph of Thorne's daughter's room, downloaded hours ago from a secure portal. There, on the sill, half obscured by a potted fern, a similar shape. Not identical, but the style. The proprietor's words echo, only a few craftsmen work with that particular ebony substitute. Very particular, very precise. This isn't a coincidence. It's a signature, subtle yet brazen. You open your laptop, fingers flying across the keys, a whirlwind of searches. Missing young women, last 5 years, city perimeter. The results are a grim litany of names, faces, and unanswered questions. The pattern begins to emerge, faint lines connecting disparate points. Not every case has a bird feeder, you note, a knot forming in your gut, but what else? You scrutinize the details, victim profile, always young women, typically between 18 and 22. Often artistic, or with a keen interest in nature, plants, or wildlife. Circumstance, disappeared from their homes, usually in the early hours of the morning. No signs of forced entry. Windows often found ajar, or unlocked, as if awaiting a gentle breeze. Residual clues, a specific, almost ritualistic tidiness left behind. No disarray. A miniature, perfectly woven bird's nest. A single, pressed fern leaf, impossibly green. A small, wooden carving of a fox. It's not just the bird feeders. It's the craftsmanship. The deliberate placement. The subtle invitation. This isn't about random opportunity. This is about selection. The more you dig, the more the meticulousness stands out. This person, or people, doesn't just take, they curate. They leave a calling card that only a select few would recognize, or perhaps, only one. The proprietor's words about the ebony substitute gnaw at you. A rare wood, he'd said, often used for detailed carving. Not native. It had to come from somewhere. Your gaze falls on the map tacked to your corkboard, a web of red string connecting crime scenes. If this wood is so rare, so particular, then its journey here must be traceable. Someone, somewhere, received a shipment of it. And that shipment, however small, would have left a paper trail, a digital footprint in the labyrinthine records of the port. You drive towards the docks, the city's industrial underbelly, where cargo ships birth like leviathans, disgorging their global treasures and secrets. Forklifts whiz by, their horns blaring, a symphony of industry.
You navigate the maze of towering containers, searching for the administrative offices. Small quantities. The clerk sighs, a puff of resignation. That's a needle in a haystack, private investigator. We move hundreds of tons daily. But there was one. A unique shipment a few years back. Not much of it. Went to a private workshop, out in the old industrial district. Carving tools, specialized. Said it was for artistic commissions. He taps on his terminal, a slow dance of fingers, and a name appears on the screen, alongside a faded shipping manifest. You lean in, your breath catching. And the spider at its center is beginning to reveal its face. The name on the screen, a ghost from a past you tried to bury, shimmers in the dim light. Not a workshop, but a man. A logistics manager, once a fleeting witness in your original investigation, someone whose testimony was deemed peripheral, irrelevant. Now, his name is etched onto a faded shipping manifest, a stark, unwelcome anchor to the current abyss. Your breath hitches. He was dismissed as a nobody, a minor functionary. But here he is again, a spider silkying threads between two vanishing acts. You trace the words with a fingertip, a cold certainty settling in your gut. This isn't coincidence. The logistics manager, a man named Arthur Finch, had connections to a specific, specialized shipping firm, one known for handling unusual, often high-value, and discreet cargo. A firm that, you now remember, was tangentially linked to a shell company owned by the city councilman's family. The pieces click with a quiet, horrifying precision. The witness wasn't seeing nothing, he was ensuring nothing could be seen. The city skyline recedes in your rearview mirror, replaced by the skeletal cranes and stacked containers of the docks. The air thickens with the brine of the ocean and the metallic tang of industry. This place, a gargantuan maw swallowing and disgorging the world's wares, holds a truth you're desperately seeking. Forklifts hum, their tines scraping concrete. Clerks, hunched over monitors, tap away at keyboards, their faces illuminated by the green glow of spreadsheets. You navigate the labyrinthine aisles of archived manifests, past rows of dusty ledgers and filing cabinets crammed with paper. You push past a hesitant clerk, her eyes wide with a quiet alarm at your determined stride. You cite regulations, flash an old, laminated investigator's card, a relic from a former life, and demand access to the records pertaining to Arthur Finch's shipments from 3 months prior. Hours bleed into each other, your gaze scanning columns of figures, dates, and destinations. Your fingers, calloused from years of turning pages and prying open secrets, finally alight on a specific entry. A shipment from the specialized firm, marked Industrial Components, addressed to a shell company you now recognize as belonging to the councilman's network. The declared weight is surprisingly light for Industrial Components, the value suspiciously low. An anomaly. You press the clerk for the physical logbooks, for any accompanying inspection reports. She returns, grudgingly, with a heavy, leather-bound volume. You flip through its brittle pages, your eyes darting, searching. And then you find it, a handwritten note, almost illegible, scrawled in the margin next to the entry. Rush pickup. Late night. Unscheduled. And a name, half erased, but the faint indentations remain, C. Driver. The city councilman's personal driver. Your breath catches a sharp intake of the humid, cargo-laden air. The city councilman himself. Not just connected, but directly involved. This wasn't just a disappearance, it was an abduction, meticulously planned, executed by those in power. You need more. You need a witness. You find a grizzled foreman, his face a roadmap of sun and wind, nursing a thermos of lukewarm tea in a quiet corner. His eyes, roomy but sharp, hold decades of dockside memories. You show him the entry, the handwritten note. He squints, then nods slowly.
I remember that one," the grizzled foreman rasps, his voice like gravel.
Unusual. Sealed container. Felt. Wrong.
Too light for what they said was inside, too heavy for the paperwork. And that driver, the councilman's man, he was there himself, overseeing it all, like it was gold. The words echo in the vastness of the bay. Gold. Or something far more precious, far more damning. You feel the tremor of a seismic shift, the ground beneath your investigation giving way to a deeper, more treacherous stratum. Just as the final piece of the puzzle slots into place, a piercing wail slices through the industrial din sirens. Not distant, but close. Too close. Your head snaps up. The sound is growing louder, a frantic, red pulse in the periphery of your hearing. A small, secure office, usually locked tight, now stands ajar, a faint, flickering light spilling from within. An instinct, sharp and undeniable, pulls you towards it. You push the door open fully. The scene inside is a tableau of calculated malice. On a metal desk, beneath a single, bare bulb, lies a delicate silver locket, glinting dully. You recognize it instantly, a distinctive piece, often worn by the missing councilman's daughter, seen in countless photographs. And next to it, carelessly placed, is a crumpled, empty coffee cup, the same brand you'd been drinking from hours ago. Your coffee cup. And, worse, a small, worn leather wallet, a forgotten relic from your own pocket, your ID peeking out. This isn't a discovery. This is a trap. A meticulously crafted frame. They knew you were coming. They wanted you to find this. You check your pockets, a frantic pat-down. Your digital recorder, the one with the grizzled foreman's testimony, is gone. The critical page from the old logbook, the one with the councilman's driver's name, ripped clean from its binding. "He's in here," a voice bellows, rough and authoritative. The security chief at the port, his face grim, appears in the doorway, flanked by two burly guards. Behind them, the flashing blue and red lights of a patrol cruiser spill into the inspection bay, painting the stacked containers in lurid, shifting hues. You are caught, perfectly, horribly. The locket, your coffee cup, your ID all planted, all damning. The real evidence, the proof of the councilman's monstrous secret, vanished into thin air. You are a fugitive. The security chief lunges, his hand reaching for your arm. You duck, a lifetime of instinct kicking in, and surge past him, weaving through the crowded aisles of manifests and the startled faces of clerks. The sirens shriek, closer now, a chorus of accusation. The city, once your relentless pursuit of truth, has become a relentless pursuit of you. Not the glinting metal, you realize, but a deeper, more insidious currency. Something precious, yes, but steeped in shadow, its value measured not in weight but in the ruin it promises. You move, a predator melting into the periphery. The vast metal containers, stacked like forgotten giants, offer a labyrinth of escape. Your breath rasps in your throat, a raw counterpoint to the distant clang of machinery. Every shadow is a potential watcher, every creak of metal a phantom footstep. Slipping through a gap in the perimeter fence, you shed the port's grimy embrace. The city exhales its polluted breath, a symphony of sirens and distant traffic rising to meet you. Your old sedan, a familiar shell, is a liability now. You abandon it in a forgotten alley, a silent prayer to the rust and grime to render it invisible. From your pocket, you retrieve a burner phone, its plastic cheap, its purpose singular. A single, coded text message is sent into the digital ether, a lifeline cast to a forgotten corner of your past. Hours later, the city's skin crawls beneath your hurried steps. You navigate a maze of back alleys, a phantom in the urban decay. The air grows heavy with the scent of damp concrete and forgotten dreams as you delve into the abandoned factory district, its skeletal structures silhouetted against a bruised twilight sky. Here, the city's pulse slows, its surveillance eyes less vigilant.
It ain't bullion. Information. Leverage. Financial records, land deeds, sensitive communications. All the dirty secrets of this city, digitized and weaponized.
The disappearances, he trails off, they're connected. Those who get too close to the source, or those who are.
The young woman from before.
They got too close?
Or were used to send a message.
A very public, very brutal message.
The fixer shifts, stubbing out his cigarette. The architect. He controls the flow.
The fixer's gaze meets yours, unwavering.
It's the head of city planning. Marcus Thorne. He's the one pulling the strings.
The land acquisitions, the zoning changes, the entire digital backbone of the city.
All under his thumb.
He doesn't just manage the city, he owns it, through data, through fear.
The name hits you like a physical blow.
A pillar of the community, the face of progress, the architect of the city's future. You're not chasing a single villain, but a hydra of influence, its heads rooted deep in the civic structure. The tremor you felt at the bay was not a shift in the ground, but a tremor in the foundations of everything you thought you knew about this city.
And now, you have a name. A target.
The tremor you felt wasn't an earthquake, but the first crack in a dam, the prelude to a deluge. It was the city groaning under a weight too heavy to bear, a sickness you had only just begun to diagnose. Fluorescent lights, caged and grimy, cast a sickly yellow glow on the concrete floor, illuminating dust motes dancing in the stale air. Each shadow seemed to lengthen, to shift, to conceal. This was a place of passage, of hidden things, and you felt the weight of countless secrets pressing down. You found him by the third stack, a figure hunched over a flickering tablet screen, the glow painting his face in stark relief. It was the former colleague, his uniform long shed for the muted tones of a civilian, but the rigid set of his shoulders, the coiled tension in his frame, remained. He looked up, his eyes, once sharp and unwavering, now held a weary cynicism that mirrored your own. No handshake, no pleasantries. The air between you was thick with unspoken history, with the ghosts of cases past and the specter of a shared disgrace.
Seth. He rasped, his voice a low growl against the ambient hum. Took you long enough?
Some paths are longer than others, you replied, your gaze sweeping the cavernous bay, searching for any sign of unwelcome eyes.
What have you found? He gestured to the tablet. A map of the port glowing faintly. Irregularities. Ghost shipments, mostly.
Manifests filed, but no corresponding cargo.
Or cargo that's not what it claims to be.
He tapped a specific section of the map, highlighting a series of movements over the past few months.
Look at the timing.
Each time one of these women vanished, there was a spike in these phantom movements.
Always late at night, always routed through specific, less monitored berths. Your mind, a relentless engine, began to connect the dots. So, the disappearances aren't random. They're a cover.
Or a diversion. Or a delivery, he muttered, his eyes narrowing, fixed on the screen.
I've been tracking a specific series of containers.
Officially, they're listed as industrial machinery, high-value components. But the weight logs, if you dig deep enough, don't quite add up. Too light for what they claim to be, yet too heavy for an empty shell. He pushed the tablet into your hands.
Your eyes scanned the data, searching for the anomaly.
And there it was, subtle, almost imperceptible to an untrained eye.
Used for something else.
Exactly, he affirmed, a grim satisfaction in his tone. And guess who owns a controlling share in that freight company, and just happens to have significant sway over port operations and city council decisions regarding infrastructure projects?
He didn't need to name him. The pieces clicked into place with a horrifying inevitability. The city councilman, the one whose daughter's disappearance had dragged you back into this nightmare, wasn't just a victim. He was a pawn, or perhaps a co-conspirator, caught in a web spun by a far more insidious figure. Reveal, the architect of this intricate network, the true head of the Hydra, wasn't a councilman, but the chief of port operations himself. Finch, with his impeccable reputation, his philanthropic endeavors, his carefully cultivated image as a pillar of the community. He was the one pulling the strings, orchestrating the phantom shipments, manipulating the logistics. Event, the former colleague then pulled a small, laminated card from his pocket. It was an old security badge, faded but still legible, bearing the name and photo of a young woman, the first woman who vanished, the case that cost you your badge. He worked here, Seth. In logistics. She flagged one of these discrepancies to an internal auditor. A week later, he was gone. The motive, stark and brutal, unfurled before you. Finch wasn't just moving illicit goods, he was moving influence, information, and leverage. The missing women weren't random acts of violence, they were calculated disappearances, silencing potential whistleblowers, or perhaps even used as leverage against powerful families, like the councilman's. The industrial machinery was a front for a vast, illegal data network, or perhaps even human cargo, used to control, to blackmail, to consolidate power across the city and beyond. Finch was building an empire of secrets, using the port as his fortress, the missing women as his silent enforcers. He controls the flow of everything. You murmured, the full scope of his power settling upon you like a shroud. Money, information, lives. And he's untouchable, the former colleague added, his voice devoid of hope. Or he was. The Hydra had a head, and you had a name. The tremor had become a rumble, and the city was about to feel the full force of its own corruption. You looked at the former colleague, a silent agreement passing between you. The fight had just begun, and it was going to be a brutal one. The city, a sprawling beast of glass and steel, hummed with a false peace. You felt its tremor, deep in your bones, a vibration of rot beneath its polished surface. The name, whispered in the dim light of the backroom, had been a single thread. Now, with the former colleague by your side, you began to pull. The air in the cramped office, thick with stale coffee and old paper, crackled with a new urgency. A shell corporation, yes, but look at its subsidiaries. A dozen holding companies, all funneling into a single entity. You leaned closer, your gaze following the digital breadcrumbs. The connections were subtle, almost invisible to an untrained eye, but the pattern emerged, stark and chilling. Each subsidiary, seemingly innocuous, a landscape design firm, a waste management contractor, a property development group, shared an executive board member. Almost artistic, precision of the adversary. Someone who builds, who designs. Not just structures, but schemes. The former colleague nodded, their face grim. They're everywhere, Seth. Every major infrastructure project, every new high-rise, every rezoning proposal. Their fingerprints are on the city itself. They typed a few more commands, and a new screen populated with a single, prominent name, the city's most celebrated urban planner, a figure lauded for transforming neglected districts into gleaming symbols of progress. The irony tasted like ash. Respectable, you muttered, the word a bitter jest. Powerful. The pieces clicked into place, not with a gentle thud, but a sickening lurch. The councilman's daughter, the previous victims, all connected to areas undergoing significant redevelopment, all linked to projects overseen by this very individual. The disappearances weren't random acts of violence, they were calculated removals, disruptions in a grand design. And their lair, you pressed. Your voice low, tight with anticipation. Where does an architect hide their blueprints for destruction?
The former colleague pointed to a cluster of digital pins on a map of the city's industrial waterfront.
This logistics company.
One of the architect's smaller, less visible ventures.
Specializes in oversized and sensitive cargo. Minimal oversight, maximum privacy. And look at the traffic logs.
A flurry of entries appeared, detailing irregular, late-night shipments, often routed through a specific facility. These aren't standard deliveries, Seth, the former colleague concluded, their voice barely above a whisper.
These are ghost shipments.
And they all converge here. The screen zoomed in, highlighting a single, isolated structure on the periphery of the vast maritime complex.
Not a simple warehouse, but a fortified gateway, designed for scrutiny, yet seemingly used for concealment.
This was it. The heart of the Hydra, the architect's chamber of horrors. Hours later, under the shroud of a moonless night, you and the former colleague approached the designated target. Security cameras, few but strategically placed, swept silent arcs.
It's too quiet.
You nodded, your hand instinctively going to the worn grip of the pistol tucked into your waistband.
The tension was a living thing, coiling in your stomach.
This wasn't just a place of business, it felt like a tomb. The service door, surprisingly, yielded to a simple lock-picking tool. A click, a soft push, and the thick scent of ozone and something metallic, something vaguely antiseptic, assaulted your senses. You slipped inside, the former colleague right behind you, both of you moving like wraiths. Towering stacks of unmarked crates lined the walls, stretching into the gloom. Your boots scuffed against something on the concrete floor. You knelt, your fingers brushing against a faint, reddish-brown stain, almost invisible in the dim light. Not fresh, but undeniable. Over there, the former colleague hissed, pointing to a section of the bay partitioned off by heavy, sound-dampening panels. A single, high-intensity work light glowed from within, casting a stark, artificial brilliance. You moved towards it, each step deliberate, your senses stretched taut. The faint hum of machinery, a low, rhythmic thrum, emanated from behind the panels. It wasn't the sound of cargo being moved, it was something else, something precise and constant. Peering through a narrow gap where two panels met imperfectly, you saw it. A meticulously arranged display of specialized equipment. Surgical-grade tools gleamed under the harsh light, laid out on sterile cloths. And in the center, a large, custom-built table, its surface gleaming with a disturbing, reflective sheen. A blueprint, unfurled and weighted down, lay beside the table. You could only make out a few details from your vantage point, but they were enough. Geometric patterns, precise measurements, notations that looked like a macabre fusion of engineering and anatomy. It wasn't a blueprint for a building. It was a blueprint for an event. A horrifying, carefully constructed performance. The hum intensified, and you realized its source, a series of sophisticated environmental controls, meticulously regulating temperature and humidity within the partition space. This wasn't just a holding pen, it was a stage. The architect wasn't just abducting people, they were preparing something unimaginable, something designed to be observed, to be experienced by a select few. The final victims weren't merely held here, they were destined to be part of this perverse spectacle. The tremor had become a roar, and you stood at the very threshold of its terrifying crescendo. A soft hiss, and the steel door, a heavy sentinel, swings inward. A stale gust, thick with the scent of salt, diesel, and something metallic, like old blood or fresh rust, embraces you. The air is a palpable weight here, pressing against your skin, chilling you to the bone. Overhead, skeletal gantries, silent and still, claw at the unseen ceiling. Fluorescent tubes, some flickering, others dead, cast an anemic glow across stacks of crated goods, their labels a jumble of foreign alphabets and cryptic symbols. Your breath catches in your throat. The dust motes dance in the weak light, illuminated by a single, focused beam originating from the far end of the bay. You move with the silent grace of a predator, your worn boots barely scuffing the concrete floor. As you draw closer to the light source, the metallic tang in the air intensifies, now unmistakably tinged with ozone and a hint of antiseptic. You duck behind a towering stack of wooden crates, their rough surfaces scratching lightly against your coat. Peeking through a narrow gap, your eyes adjust to the stark contrast. In the center of the illuminated zone, a figure stands, back to you, observing something. With an almost religious reverence. Around them, several smaller, more recent wooden crates are stacked, haphazardly, like discarded toys. And then you see them. 3 forms, bound and gagged, slumped against the base of a larger, sealed container. One of them is the councilman's daughter, her red hair a stark splash against the dull wood. Your stomach twists. You recognize the second young woman from the missing persons reports you'd obsessively reviewed. The third. Her face is obscured by her hair, but the faint, familiar pattern of a floral scarf around her neck punches the air from your lungs. It's the same scarf the first victim, the one who stole your badge and your piece, was wearing in her last known photograph. A low, calm voice cuts through the quiet, smooth as polished stone. You found your way, Seth. I knew you would. The figure turns. It's the city councilman's advisor, his face unreadable in the harsh light, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. He holds a small, ornate dagger, its blade gleaming. You feel a surge of recognition, a sickening twist of pieces falling into place. Always chasing the ghost, always arriving at the precipice. He gestures with the dagger towards the bound figures. These young women. They are the perfect conduits. They represent the city's future, its vibrancy. And their disappearance, their transformation, is a message. The scarf, it screams at you. A purification, Seth, the advisor explains, his eyes alight with a terrifying conviction. This city is diseased. Its leaders, its institutions, its very soul. They need to be reminded of what true power is, what true sacrifice demands. The first one. He was a test, wasn't she? The perfect canvas to paint my masterpiece. Her disappearance broke you, didn't it? Made you question everything. That was the beginning. He steps closer to the third bound figure, the one with the floral scarf, and gently brushes a strand of hair from her face. It is her. The face that haunted your nightmares, the case that ruined you, staring back at you, older, ravaged, but unmistakably alive. A guttural sound escapes your throat, a mixture of rage and overwhelming despair. He's been here, all this time, a ghost in plain sight. He was never meant to be found, Seth. Her purpose was to inspire fear, to sow discord. To prove that the system could be broken. And it worked, didn't it? They will be the final stroke. They will vanish, leaving only echoes, and the city will be forced to rebuild, purged of its weaknesses. A blank slate, awaiting the true architects. He raises the dagger, its point aimed not at the bound women, but at the large, sealed container behind them. You see this, Seth? This isn't just a cargo container. It's a testament. A monument to forgotten ambition, to the ultimate disappearance. It's where the memories go. You've served your purpose. The air crackles with unspoken violence. Your greatest fear, the one that crippled you, the one that kept you tethered to the city's underbelly, is staring you down. But this time, you're not just chasing ghosts. You're fighting to save what little life remains, to reclaim a piece of yourself that was stolen so long ago. This time, you stand your ground. The orchestrator stumbles, a dark bloom spreading across their chest, their eyes wide with a final, desperate understanding. You watch them fall, a puppet whose strings have been severed, collapsing amidst the stacked crates and the scent of brine and diesel. The pistol, still warm in your grip, lowers slowly. Behind a stack of forgotten pallets, a figure stirs. You move, a phantom in the industrial gloom, tearing away the adhesive tape, untying the ropes that bite into her wrists. She trembles, a leaf caught in a sudden gust, her gaze finding yours, a silent plea for solace, for an end to the nightmare. You offer a hand, a steadying presence amidst the wreckage of her ordeal, and guide her away from the shadow of the fallen architect of her suffering. The wail of sirens, distant at first, then growing to a fever pitch, shatters the fragile peace. Uniformed officers flood the space, their boots scraping on the concrete, their voices sharp commands slicing through the lingering tension. He surveys the scene, his eyes lingering on the still form of the orchestrator, then on the trembling councilman's daughter, now being gently led away by a medic. You always find a way to be at the heart of the storm. Don't you? You meet his gaze, unflinching. Some storms follow you, regardless of where you try to hide. The words hang between you, heavy with shared history, with the ghosts of cases past. Now, the truth, stark and brutal, lies before him. The questions begin, a barrage of precise inquiries, each word a stone in a wall being built around you. You recount the sequence of events, the chase, the final, desperate confrontation, the rescue. Your voice is steady, devoid of the tremor that still echoes in your bones. The detective listens, his expression unreadable, occasionally scribbling notes in a small pad. He asks about the weapon, about your authority, about the meticulous planning that brought you to this precise, desolate corner of the city. As the formal interrogation concludes, the media descends. A ravenous pack, their cameras flashing like predatory eyes, their microphones thrust forward like hungry mouths. They surge towards the perimeter, their shouts a cacophony of speculation and demand. Former detective Seth involved in rescue. City councilman's daughter found alive. Vigilante justice in the docks. The headlines write themselves, each word a judgment, a sensational echo of your past and present. You feel the weight of their collective gaze, the hungry curiosity, the eager anticipation of your downfall or redemption, depending on the narrative they choose to weave. The detective places a hand on your shoulder, a rare gesture of something akin to solidarity. This isn't over, Seth. You know that, right? His eyes flick towards the fallen figure, then to a discarded data chip lying near their hand, overlooked by the uniformed officers in the initial chaos. This one. They weren't working alone. Not really. The reach of this conspiracy, it stretches further than this bay, further than even this city. This was just a node, a branch. You retrieve the data chip, its metallic surface cool beneath your thumb. The detective's words confirm your own gnawing suspicion. The orchestrator, for all their cunning, was merely a player in a larger, more intricate game. Her father, the councilman, rushes to her, a desperate embrace that speaks volumes of his relief. The ghost of the young woman whose disappearance cost you everything still lingers, a silent question mark in the periphery of your vision. Her case, so eerily similar, so meticulously mirrored, still begs for its own reckoning. The air in the inspection bay, once thick with the tang of salt and diesel, now carries the metallic scent of blood and the acrid tang of gunpowder. You stand amidst the controlled chaos, the flashing lights, the urgent voices, a solitary figure in a storm of your own making. The weight of the pistol is gone, replaced by the heavier burden of knowledge. The true fight, against the unseen network, the unexposed reach, has only just begun. The city, shrouded in its own complicity, waits for you to dig deeper, to finally unearth the rot at its core. And you, Seth, are ready to descend. The metallic surface of the data chip, cool beneath your thumb, feels like a shard of frozen truth. The detective's words, a quiet echo in the vast, echoing space, confirm the gnawing suspicion that has been a shadow at your heels. The orchestrator, for all their cunning, was merely a player in a grander, more sinister game. You turn the chip over, its edges sharp against your skin. The air in the bay is thick with the scent of diesel and brine, a constant reminder of the unseen currents that move beneath the city's veneer. This isn't the end of a chase, it's the uncovering of a foundation. Your fingers, steady now, slot the chip into the portable reader. The small screen flickers to life, spilling a pale, anemic glow onto your face. What unfolds is not a simple ledger, but a meticulously woven tapestry of illicit transactions, encrypted communications, and shell corporations. Dates and amounts scroll past, then names, or rather, codes that resolve into names you know, names that sit on gilded chairs in polished boardrooms. The thread leads, inevitably, to the councilman. The young women, both the vanished daughter and the ghost from your past, were not just victims, they were pieces in a cruel, elaborate chess game. A grim realization solidifies in your gut: the orchestrator you pursued was a mere hand, and the councilman, the calculating mind. But even he feels like a pawn in a larger, older war for control of the city's very soul. The highest echelons are not just figures, they are a web, sticky and vast. A deep, slow breath leaves your lungs, carrying with it a phantom weight. Comprehensive, Seth. Enough to start a fire. But the reach. It goes deeper than one man. You nod, the truth a bitter taste on your tongue. The system isn't just broken, it's designed this way. To bring down the councilman would be to strike at a single tentacle, while the beast itself remains submerged, its eyes watching from the murky depths. The city, your city, is not just corrupt, it is compromised at its core. This isn't the clean, definitive victory you once craved, the kind that brought a satisfying click of handcuffs and a clear sense of justice served. The cost of this journey settles over you, a heavy shroud. The badge, lost to a crucible of doubt and failure. The sleepless nights, haunted by the vacant eyes of the missing. The relentless pursuit, a desperate act of atonement. You chased a ghost, and in doing so, you became one yourself. But something has shifted. The relentless ache of regret, while still present, no longer consumes you. The raw wound of failure has scabbed over, leaving a scar that is a testament, not just to loss, but to perseverance. You close your eyes for a moment, the hum of the inspection bay a distant drone. The faces of the vanished flicker in your mind's eye, no longer accusatory, but perhaps, finally, at peace in the knowledge that their truth has been seen, even if not fully avenged. The closure is not absolute, it is fragile, a delicate glass sculpture in the face of a storm. But it is a closure nonetheless. A quiet acceptance that some battles are fought not for victory, but for witness. The detective's hand rests briefly on your shoulder, a gesture of solidarity. "What now?" he asks, his voice soft, knowing. You open your eyes, looking past him, past the cargo containers stacked like concrete giants, towards the sliver of dawn painting the distant sky. The city awakens, unaware of the rot beneath its gleaming facade. This journey, this descent into the city's underbelly, has forged something new within you. A sharper edge, a clearer vision, and a quiet resolve that no longer seeks redemption in external validation, but in the steadfast pursuit of truth, however small, however costly. But for the first time in years, the weight of memory feels less like a crushing burden and more like a compass. You retrieve the data chip, carefully, as if it holds not just information, but the fragile promise of a different kind of justice. You carry the truth, and a quiet understanding that some fights are never truly over, only transformed. And so, you walk, not towards an ending, but towards a beginning, etched in the gray light of a new day.